them say, nothing's ever promised tomorrow today. But we're fine.
Hey, what's good and welcome back to Mally Braid TV. And today, we going backwards in time to the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. Back when Colombia was the murder capital of the whole world. And the cocaine cowboys drug war in Miami was at its peak. We gonna take a look and see who really made the most money at the peak of their game. The cocaine godmother, Griselda Blanco, or El Padrino, Pablo Escobar. Griselda Blanco, the cocaine godmother, was born February 15th, 1943 in Cartagena, Colombia. In 1964, Griselda Blanco used illegal passports to move her husband, and 4 kids to Queens, New York. She started her cocaine business here, and by April 1975, she was indicted on federal drug conspiracy charges along with 30 co-defendants. She fled to Colombia before she could be caught. A few years later, she came back to Miami. This was the 1970s, and her return directly led to hundreds of murders and public violence, later called the Miami Drug War or the Cocaine Cowboys War. At this time, she was making, at her peak, $80 million per month. $80 million per month. On February 17th, 1985, she was arrested by the DEA for conspiring to manufacture, import, and distribute cocaine. She was sentenced to 15 years in prison. While incarcerated, she was also charged with 3 murders back in her time in Florida. She pled guilty and was sentenced to 20 years in prison. She was known to be ruthless and has been known to order killings of entire families. She has even had her hitman assassinate her kid's father for crossing her. In 2004, she was released from prison and deported back to Colombia. She was murdered on September 3rd, 2012 at a butcher shop. She was shot twice by a man on a motorcycle. Pablo Escobar, the king of cocaine, was born December 1st, 1949. In 1976, Pablo founded the Medellin cartel, which established the first smuggling routes from Peru, Bolivia, and Ecuador through Colombia and eventually into the United States. By the 1980s, he was pushing 70 to 80 tons monthly into the US. He became one of the richest people in the world, and we all know with money comes violence, leading to the murders of police officers, judges, locals, and politicians, making Colombia the murder capital of the entire world. In a 1982 election, Pablo was elected as an alternate to the Chamber of Representatives for the Liberal Party. It didn't last long due to his illegal activities, and by 1991, Pablo Escobar was sentenced to 5 years in prison for a bunch of charges. But in Pablo fashion, he made a deal for no extradition with the Colombian president himself. La Cathedral is what the prison was called that he built on his own. This man built his own luxury prison to stay in. 1 year later, he escaped and started hiding. And as a result of his hiding, the Medellin cartel, having no leader, fell apart. In 1993, Pablo was killed in his hometown by Colombian National Police with a gunshot wound to the back of the head on top of a roof. Both sole blow. Both were murdered in the end. When Griselda Blanco was at her peak, she was raking in $80 million a month in the 80s. You adjust that to inflation, that's $294,862,905. At Pablo Escobar's peak, he was worth $30 billion. Adjust that to inflation for 2023, he was worth $69,999,729,483. At Griselda Blanco's peak, she was known to move 3 tons yearly. That's 6,000 pounds of blow a year. At Pablo Escobar's height, he was known to move 960 tons a year. That's 1,920,000 pounds of cocaine. At Griselda Blanco's peak, she was making $80 million a month in the freaking 80s. But even still, at $80 million per month, it would take her 3,124 years to equal Pablo's $30 billion fortune at his death. So now you know. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, please subscribe, and always remember, make money, dodge drama, and live life.
And I heard him say, nothing's ever promised tomorrow today, but we'll find a way.